Good afternoon, folks. I thought I'd just do kind of a little video on my talking about torque wrenches because I've had some bad experience of torque wrenches in the past, as you've probably gathered from me, some of the things I've written about them. Anyway, the problem is if you've got a torque wrench that is a mechanical one, it needs it obviously needs calibrating. So how often do you have it calibrated? It's hard to say, isn't it? I mean, if you've been doing up a load of massive high tensile bolts that are sort of, 100 pounds of torque or something like that, or more, like a crank nut or something like that, and then you go on to do a little tiny bolt that's only got 5 pounds of torque, how often does a torque wrench have to be calibrated? That's the thing. And do you know, after having had it calibrated, maybe it's gone out of whack after you've done a load of sort of heavy work with it and things like that? And it was certainly my experience years ago on my Aston when I did up a crank camshaft cover, and the first when I started to put the bolts in and I torqued them up with using a torque wrench, and the first one I went to, as soon as I torqued it up, it went kink and broke off, and I couldn't believe it. And I phoned an old gentleman who was a bit of a guru and worked on loads of historic sort of racing cars and things like that, and he said, well, you're using a torque wrench, aren't you? And I said, yes. And he said, well, you're expecting a torque wrench to be accurate at the lower end of the scale. He said, what's your torque wrench go up to? And I said, I don't know, 150 pounds or something like that, or 200 pounds of torque. And he said, well, how do you expect a torque wrench that runs at 200 pounds of torque to be accurate at 5 pounds of torque? Now, admittedly, that was 20 years ago, and times have changed and equipment is more accurate, but you still are left the problem of when do you get your torque wrench calibrated. So I've always done it this way. The other thing is, obviously everyone should have a torque wrench if you're doing this kind of work. I think I said on one of my videos I prefer these mechanical ones, not mechanical, this kind of old-fashioned system of it bends the rod as you torque. The reason why I prefer that is it's it can't go wrong. It uses the bending force, so you can't get it wrong. So one of the things I used to do is I used to build these little gas turbine engines. Here's one here in a helicopter, and they're very, very precise machines. They run at an incredibly high RPM. They run at 180,000 RPM, and I used to, I built probably about 20 of these things. Never ever had a problem. But one of the things that you have to do with them is you have to have very precise torque loadings on all the internal components in here, obviously. And these torque loadings are very, very low. They're often down to 1 pound, 1 foot-pound of torque, and they all have to be even. And you can't buy a torque wrench, or you certainly in those days couldn't buy a torque wrench at 1 foot-pound of torque. I don't know if you can now, but they certainly didn't used to do them in those days. So basically, I made my own torque wrench, and I've always used it, on the cars, and I've used it on here. So I thought I'd show you. So what does foot-pounds of torque mean? Now I'm sorry if this is teaching some of you to suck eggs, because I'm sure some of you, probably a lot of you know, but if you didn't, here it is. It's quite simple, really. It's just if you want to pull 1 foot-pound of torque, what you do is you pull 1 pound on here, and you make sure that you're 1 foot away from the centre. So to pull 1 foot-pound, you just pull like that. That's 1 foot-pound, 2 foot-pounds, 3 foot-pounds, 4, 5 foot-pounds, 7 foot-pounds of torque, you see. So you just pull on there and make sure you're 1 foot away from the centre. Once you know that, it's easy, isn't it? Because it's easy to actually then make up your own little highly sensitive torque wrench. And using fish scales or food scales, what can be more accurate? These are very accurate. The full range is only 11 pounds. Your mid-range is 6 pounds, which is exactly where you want to be for like doing cam cover nuts up and things like that, 5-6 pounds of torque. So this is going to be a much more accurate instrument. It's not going to be accurate down the bottom here, is it? If you want to try and pull 1/2 pound, it's you know, it's less accurate there than it is up there. In theory, it should be linear, but you know these things are often not. But I did find it very accurate for pulling just 1 foot-pound of torque on my little turbine engines, so I found it very, very useful for that. So we can actually do a test here just to check and see if the pull on here corresponds with our reading here. So I'll just quickly show you. We're not going to torque anything up, by the way. This is a Lotus V8 engine also. Don't worry, it's not the Ferrari engine. I expect you would probably know that because the big ends on the things are slightly different. But anyway, let's do the test. Now, so you can see this sort of more easily. This one's got a little hold meter on here. It's just a ring. And then as I pull on there, you'll see it correspond onto the actual gauge on here. So as I pull, okay, if I pull 20 foot-pounds on there and then have a look, you'll see that in fact it's reading 22 on there. So I probably pulled 22 rather than 20. So this is a more accurate thing. Let's go again. Let's have another look. Let's just drop it down. So again, if I pull, sorry, this needle is being held across by the end of the hook here. But as long as I go over 10 pounds, so if I pull, there we go, 15. What I think is 15 pounds. It's actually reading 16 on there, but my judgment is 15 on here. But I would go with that, not with that. So let's go again. Let's pull what I would consider, let's pull say 30 pounds. So I'm going to pull 30 pounds looking at the torque wrench. 30 pounds, and in fact it has pulled 30 pounds. So that gives you an idea that it does work. But if you're trying to be very precise, suppose you wanted 28 pounds. Now I was looking at that gauge for all those readings. If I want to pull 28 pounds, I'm going to now look at this gauge. I just go like that, look at it, there's 28 pounds there. You see? So it's much more accurate. So the next evolution of that is this, which is quite a cute little gadget. Can you hear that? That's the rain outside taunting me. That's why I'm inside doing this. So this is what I've done. Here you have a piece of aluminium tube, and when I slide the ratchet into it, which is a little junior ratchet, little tiny one, okay, I only use this for going up to say 30 pounds of torque, okay. I don't use the big ratchet, sorry, not ratchet, the big torque wrench, because as we've seen, it's not very accurate, you know, because it relies on your judgment up to 30 pounds. Now, obviously, the bigger, the ratchet torque wrench, the mechanical ones that click, they are accurate at 30 pounds, so that's fine. But I always use this, really for anything from 5 pounds up to 30 pounds, which is, like I say, it's 1 foot from there to there. And then what I do is I just put it on here like this and hook my scales over there like that. And then, 1 second, when I pull, I've got a very accurate reading, you see, and I can pull 5 foot-pounds of torque. So that would be 5 foot-pounds would be there, and I just hold it like that, and it will move around and then stop, and that's my 5 foot-pounds. You can see, and I can instantly calibrate my scales. And when I quickly check, I just weigh something that I know weighs 5 pounds, and if it weighs 5 pounds, then this is right. Simple, isn't it? The thing is, you can often go and buy all these tools, and this one you'll probably recognise. This is the one for adjusting, you know, taking your shims out of your camshafts. And obviously I've not owned a Ferrari before, so I haven't ever done this job, and I ordered this tool thinking it would be something a bit special. When I actually found out how it works, it's just ridiculous. I should have made it myself, because I thought that this was the tool that kind of, you know, you hooked it in to depress the valve, and then it was, you know, and it had a fancy cam on there that would kind of gently depress the valve under the camshaft, and then you kind of hooked out the thing, and I had no idea what this was. But when I actually sat and studied it, and then I checked with someone how you use it, what you actually do is ridiculous. You take that is what you jam that under the camshaft, between the camshaft with the lobe up. You jam it between the camshaft and the follower, and then you just lever it down like that. So you press the valve down, obviously making sure the piston's not up the bore, and then you just get that little hook, and you just hook it in the side, and that is what locks it. That's what locks the valve down, so you can hook the shim out. Well, I could have made that myself, and I paid like £70 for that. I had a good mind just to get a screwdriver, bend it myself, and then just make something, anything. You could shove a sliver of metal in there, you know, and just just wedge and lever the valve down. So, you know, specialist tool, bit of a waste of time when you know what it does and how it works. It's easy to make one yourself. God only knows what this thing on the end here is for. I mean, I don't know what the idea of that is, but it's probably to give you more perceived value for money. I expect some of you to tell me, oh no, you've got to do, you know, it's for something else. But I tell you, yeah, I've already done it, and it's I haven't found any use for that bit on the end there, which kind of, when it's screwed up, it's screwed up. I mean, it's no reason for it to be a separate piece. But so yes, specialist tools are not always not always what they seem to be. Here you go, guys. I thought I'd be spontaneous, wander outside and show you what you do with this tool. There's no disrespect to Ferrari. Ferrari are fine. I just find the tool funny. That, like I say, you could easily make that yourself with a screwdriver. Anyway, look, what you do is you shove it in there like that. You press it down, the valve depresses, and then you just push the screwdriver in like that. So I just find it funny. And then you get this little tool, which is just a bent bit of metal, and you make sure that you put it in between, I don't know if you can see, so you're not putting it in on top of the shim, you put it in on the little bit that is the bucket. Okay, so what you do is you do that, and you make sure, now this is the first time I've done this, so properly. Okay, so let's just lever that down like that. You have to find the edge of the bucket, and then it's now wedged in, you see. Now you can see I'm not using that thing at all. And then what you do is you just, with the screwdriver, you hook out the shim, and that's it. So that's how you do that's how you do it. And in fact, you know what? I'm not going to puss out here. In fact, I'm going to turn it around and actually hook a shim out for you so you can actually see. Let's do it. So here we go. Push the valve down like that. You get your little shim tool in there, shove them in the side there. Oop, no, it's popped back out again. Just have to get it in on the edge, that's the trick. I'm gathering. Okay, let's try again. Is that held in place? Yes, it is. So now, you just get the screwdriver that's in my back pocket. That didn't come with the kit. Where is it? Oh no, it's up there. And you just hook that shim out. Like that, you see? And if you see, the shim is now loose and you hook it out. And that is how you do it. So, like that. There it is. There's the shim. Can you see? Okay, so that's how you do it. Now, let's put him back. There you go. And then you just wiggle the shim, make sure he's seated, put the tool back in, take this tool out, and then release it. And there you go. And that's how you do it. There. That's it. And it's nice. Yeah, it's spinning, it's not binding, so the shim has seated itself in, no problem. There you go. Could you have made one of those? I think you probably could.